From Triumph to Tragedy, a documentary by Nadirah Ibrahim and Kendall L. The Tulsa Race Massacre took place on May 31st to June 1st of 1921 in Oklahoma's Greenwood District, also known as Black Wall Street. Mobs of Caucasian residents attacked homes and businesses in the African American community. Black Wall Street was a symbol of economic hope and success for the African Americans.
The massacre continued for 2 days, and 35 city blocks were set aflame with 300 people killed and more than 800 people injured. Black Wall Street was an epitome of community, strength, and many successful and prosperous African American people. Black people supported each other, which allowed for easier resources like housing, education, and health.
Black Wall Street was started by a wealthy African-American landowner named Ottawa W. Gurley in Tulsa, Oklahoma of 1905. Black Wall Street was created to symbolize hope and success for the African-American community. Although racist at its roots, segregation promoted African-American interdependence, which in some cases, like Black Wall Street, positively impacted African-Americans economically, culturally, and politically.
How does Black Wall Street connect to people, places, and ideas? Well, Black Wall Street relates to people because of Ottawa W. Gurley and Dick Rowland. Gurley was a wealthy landowner that bought the land to help Black Wall Street grow and flourish for African American entrepreneurs. Gurley established a community where the wealthy, middle class, and poor all lived on the same block to eventually grow to entrepreneurs. Additionally, Dick Rowland was another important person that needs to be highlighted. Rowland was riding in an elevator in the Drexel building because he had to use the restroom. He tripped in the elevator and touched a white woman named Sarah Page. When the elevator doors reopened, Rowland ran out, Sarah screamed, and a nearby clerk reported it to the police.
Rowland was then arrested, and World War I veterans didn't want Rowland to be lynched, so they immediately rushed to the courthouse to defend him. Later then, a shot was fired and the massacre began. This shows that the entrepreneurs, the businesses, and the community all support Black people no matter what. Black Wall Street connects to places because it adds the importance of the 40 acres of land that Gurley bought and why he chose to buy it there. To build wealth, to lay a foundation, and to actually have something for the African American. Finally, Black Wall Street connects to ideas because it shows the final theme and idea that Black Wall Street was a blueprint for Black wealth. Gurley purchased the land not just for fun, but so that they could grow as a people. This was to see African Americans thrive and to see them accomplish their life goals.
Even the poor African Americans helped cultivate the success of more than 100 Black Wall Street businesses. Though the real Black Wall Street cannot be exactly recreated, connecting to nowadays, African Americans have grown so much over the years while also impacting multiple families around the world. Another reason why Black Wall Street was created was because of the segregation laws. When you think about it though, with segregation, African Americans rose up and built an affluent community amongst themselves. This ultimately presents that Black Wall Street was a blueprint following Black generations to come.
Although segregation was a very difficult time for African Americans, they still showed persistence and began creating an affluent community within their limits. This highlights all of the thriving businesses that were discredited. Many studies have shown that being surrounded by your own people will make your soul nourished and will help you grow even more. That just goes to show that if African Americans are surrounded by more African Americans, they will grow and will be successful because of how they are treated and because how they treat others. Also, if you're surrounded by people that are more successful than you, your brain begins to think like them and you'll advance as a person.
J.B. Stratford was born into slavery in Kentucky. He later grew to become a lawyer and activist while moving to Tulsa, Oklahoma in 1898. He built the largest Black-owned hotel in the country and believed that African Americans had a better chance of success if they pooled their resources.
This was exactly what happened in Tulsa. Even the poorest of people still contributed what they could to create a great neighborhood for Black people. If you think about how great and affluent the Greenwood community was and the white people saw that, then wouldn't you think I want that too? Jealousy kinda comes into play.
Lastly, Booker T. Washington. He was the person who nicknamed Tulsa as Black Wall Street. This shows that it didn't matter where you were from, that you could still be a part of the community. After Washington gave the place a nickname, many people around started calling it that as well. Washington had also been a leader in the African American community, as well as in Black elite. The Black elite was a group that was considered upper class and were African American descent.
Finally, this proves our thesis because all the examples and sources show that African Americans were thriving with their community and creating a land for people to be themselves and not part of the racist community that excluded them. Black Wall Street was a place for starting over, growth, and economic success. Segregation led to interdependence within the African American community. The community was thriving and the economy was doing great. When segregation began, it had to have been terrible, but look what has happened because of the way African Americans were persistent and how they persevered given the circumstances.
Black people became inventors, making objects for everyday life. They became wealthy and financially stable. They also became a community even more. They worked together during segregation to build up Black Wall Street. That's how segregation could have had a positive impact from different perspectives. Honestly, without segregation, the African American race would not be where it was today.
Black Wall Street was seen as a threat considering it was resourceful, affluent, and successful. After the incident with Dick Rowland in the hotel elevator, mobs turned the Greenwood district of Black Wall Street upside down. This was thought to be so because it was successful and prosperous, and that was definitely a threat. Sarah Page distinctively screamed, and the Caucasian residents in Tulsa went berserk.
The event was thought to be one of the worst racial massacres in U.S. history. This again proves the point that segregation could have had a positive impact because during segregation they were excelling. Adding new businesses, restaurants, and schools, they thought of how to fulfill the life of success and how to be more resourceful when the resources are little to none.
The world today for African Americans will not be the same without the help of past generations before. Additionally, the oil boom was also helping Black Wall Street improve. Events of the late 1800s and early 1900s helped set the stage for Black Wall Street. The oil boom in Tulsa in the early 1900s led to a significant increase in population, wealth, and opportunity. As Tulsa began to attract more industry and commerce, Black Americans saw it as set for significant opportunity. Dale Gines and Chad Rickerson wrote. This again proves that with or without segregation, we evolved and adjusted to the surroundings to create a successful, wealthy, and prosperous life. Segregation positively impacted Black people culturally by creating a better sense of belongingness, social cohesion, and pride. Have you ever been in a room where you felt you stood out? Well, Black Wall Street segregation created a community which encouraged acceptance and belonging.
Felt like they belonged by having their own people around them. They didn't have to feel scared or worried. This was because of how they felt comfortable with actions, choices, and decisions being made to cultivate their community. Additionally, social cohesion positively impacted Black people because of the way that new relationships were created and the way that other relationships were unified. Black people strengthened their bonds with others, which ended up starting new traditions, values, and beliefs.
This made the strong bonds and community buildup that we now have today. The social cohesion of Black Wall Street made others feel less marginalized and more celebrated.
Finally, another positive impact of segregation was pride. Black people used that pride to feel good about themselves and to generate self-esteem. The accomplishments of Black Wall Street established self-confidence.
When African Americans are given what should be basic human rights, life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness, they thrive emotionally, physically, and financially. While segregation has rightfully proven to be destructive in many cases, there are some instances where one would question if desegregation was the detriment of Black people.
Tulsa, Oklahoma's Greenwood district, is an ideal model of how to build wealth in Black communities. It is a blueprint for success. It has been proven to benefit Black African Americans culturally, politically, and economically. Politically, the Greenwood district allowed for leadership and collective action when needed. Economically, the Greenwood district proved to be one of the wealthiest neighborhoods across the United States.
It encouraged being self-sufficient, interdependent, and the importance of being business owners. Overall, Black Wall Street teaches us to build, spend, and celebrate within our own communities, and it will flourish, and despite the tragedy of Tulsa, Oklahoma massacre, we've been left with the recipe for success. With that pride, Black people achieved significant goals in history that now relate to today's society. These goals relate to today because of the success and passion that African Americans have and use while doing everyday activities. Cultural well-being is very important because without the culture in years before, life would not be how great it is today. Like the different traditions made from family generations, culture shapes our identity from the surrounding communities.